These are the most shocking family deception cases that fooled entire nations. It took months of research, but we finally found 3 stories that prove sometimes the people closest to you are the most dangerous liars of all. Dee Blanchard, the most devoted mother you'd ever see. For years, she cared tirelessly for her wheelchair-bound daughter Gypsy Rose, who suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, and countless other devastating conditions. The community of Springfield, Missouri loved this selfless woman who sacrificed everything for her sick child. But on June 10, 2015, Dee was found stabbed to death in her bed, and when police caught the killer, the world discovered that everything they thought they knew about this perfect family was a lie. Gypsy Rose Blanchard had been Dee's prisoner for over 20 years. The wheelchair, the feeding tube, the bald head from chemotherapy, all of it was fake. Dee had been systematically abusing her daughter through medical deception, a condition known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy, convincing everyone, including doctors, that Gypsy was dying when she was perfectly healthy. The deception started when Gypsy was just a baby. Dee claimed her daughter had sleep apnea, then added diagnosis after diagnosis as Gypsy grew older. Leukemia, muscular dystrophy, vision problems, hearing issues, intellectual disabilities. The list kept growing. She shaved Gypsy's head to mimic chemo side effects, forced her into a wheelchair, and even convinced her own daughter that she was younger than her actual age. The performance was flawless. Dee fooled doctors, nurses, social workers, and an entire community. They received a free Habitat for Humanity house, trips to Disney World through Make-A-Wish, and thousands in charity donations. Everyone saw Dee as a saint caring for her severely disabled child. But behind closed doors, Gypsy was living in hell. Dee controlled every aspect of her life, homeschooling her to keep her isolated, administering unnecessary medications, and using physical restraints when Gypsy tried to rebel. When Gypsy hit puberty and started questioning the medications, Dee told her the pills were to keep her childlike and small. By her early 20s, Gypsy was becoming desperate. She was smart enough to realize something wasn't right, but too isolated and manipulated to know how to escape. That's when she discovered the internet during Dee's brief absences from the house. In 2012, Gypsy met Nicholas Godejohn on a Christian dating site. For the first time in her life, she had someone who saw her as more than just a sick child. They began a secret online relationship, with Gypsy sneaking to use the computer at night while Dee slept. As their relationship intensified, so did Gypsy's desperation to escape. She tried running away once, but Dee found her and brought her home, threatening to tie her to the bed if she ever tried again. Gypsy felt completely trapped. In her mind, Dee would never let her go, and no one would believe her if she told the truth about her fake illnesses. That's when the murder plan began. Gypsy and Nicholas spent months discussing how to kill Dee. To Gypsy, it seemed like the only way out of her nightmare. Nicholas, who had his own mental health issues, became obsessed with helping his girlfriend escape, even if it meant murder. On June 10, 2015, Nicholas traveled from Wisconsin to Missouri. Gypsy let him into the house and then hid in the bathroom while he went to Dee's bedroom. He stabbed her 17 times as she slept. Afterwards, they fled to Wisconsin together, but not before posting cryptic messages on Facebook designed to alert authorities to the body. When police found Dee's corpse, they initially assumed Gypsy had been kidnapped by whoever killed her mother. The community was devastated. First, they'd lost the beloved Dee, and now, innocent, disabled Gypsy was missing too. But when police tracked down Gypsy and Nicholas just days later, the world got the shock of a lifetime. Gypsy Rose Blanchard walked into that police station on her own, 2 legs, no wheelchair, no feeding tube, no bald head. She was a healthy young woman who had been pretending to be sick her entire life. The revelation sent shockwaves through everyone who had known the family. Doctors who had treated Gypsy felt deceived. Neighbors who had helped with charity drives felt manipulated. The entire medical and social service system had been fooled by one woman's elaborate deception. During the trial, the full scope of DD's abuse came to light. Expert witnesses explained how Munchausen syndrome by proxy works, how abusers use their victims' fake illnesses to gain attention, sympathy, and financial benefits. Gypsy had been a prisoner in her own body, forced to play the role of a dying child to feed her mother's psychological needs. The legal outcomes reflected the complexity of the case. Nicholas Godejohn was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. But Gypsy received a much lighter sentence. She pled guilty to second-degree murder and got 10 years with the possibility of parole. Public opinion was largely sympathetic to Gypsy. While murder is never acceptable, many people understood why a young woman who had been abused and imprisoned her entire life might see violence as her only escape route. She became a symbol of how extreme psychological abuse can drive people to desperate acts. Gypsy was released on parole in December 2023 after serving 8 years. She's now trying to build a normal life for the first time, learning to navigate the world as a free adult. Her case inspired documentaries, TV shows, and countless discussions about medical child abuse and the failures of systems meant to protect vulnerable people. The Gypsy Rose Blanchard case revealed how sophisticated psychological manipulation can be and how easily an entire community can be deceived by someone willing to exploit their compassion. DD created the perfect victim in her daughter, then used that fabricated tragedy to manipulate everyone around them. When that house of lies finally collapsed, it took a murder to bring the truth to light. February 19, 2008. Karen Matthews stands in front of news cameras, tears streaming down her face, begging for help. Her 9-year-old daughter Shannon has vanished after a school swimming trip in Dewsbury, West Yorkshire. "Please," she sobs, "just bring my baby home." The entire nation's heart breaks watching this desperate mother's plea. But Karen Matthews was putting on the performance of her life. Shannon Matthews was last seen at 3:10 p.m. walking home from school. When she didn't arrive, Karen called police, and immediately everyone assumed the worst: another child abduction. The case exploded into national headlines, drawing comparisons to Madeleine McCann's disappearance just months earlier. The response was massive. Over 300 police officers joined the search. 60 detectives worked around the clock. The community of Dewsbury Moor came together like never before, organizing search parties, holding vigils, and raising money for the reward fund. Neighbors who barely spoke to each other were suddenly united in finding little Shannon. Karen played her part perfectly. She appeared on television repeatedly, always emotional, always desperate. She thanked the volunteers, pleaded with potential kidnappers, and accepted donations with trembling hands. The reward money kept climbing, £25,000 from the Sun newspaper, plus public donations that pushed the total to £50,000. For 24 agonizing days, the search consumed everything. Police dogs scoured moorland, helicopters circled overhead, divers searched local waterways. The entire operation cost £3.2 million and became one of the largest police searches in British history. Everyone wanted to be the hero who brought Shannon home. Then on March 14, 2008, police received a tip about Michael Donovan, a local man with a criminal record. When they raided his flat, they made a discovery that shocked the nation. Shannon was alive, hidden inside the base of a divan bed. She was drugged with sedatives, tied up to prevent escape, but alive. The relief lasted exactly as long as it took investigators to piece together what had really happened. This wasn't a rescue. It was the unraveling of an elaborate hoax orchestrated by Shannon's own mother. Karen Matthews had planned the entire kidnapping with Michael Donovan, who happened to be the uncle of her boyfriend, Craig Meehan. The plan was simple: hide Shannon for a few weeks, let the reward money grow, then find her and split the cash. Karen would be the grieving mother-turned-hero, and they'd all walk away rich. But they hadn't counted on how big the story would become, or how invested the public would get. What started as a local news item became a national obsession. The reward money grew beyond their wildest dreams, but so did the scrutiny. During those 24 days, while the community searched desperately for Shannon, she was being held captive just a mile from her home. Donovan kept her sedated and hidden, waiting for Karen's signal to find her. The 9-year-old had no idea her own mother was behind her nightmare. The trial revealed the full extent of Karen's deception. She had coached Shannon before the kidnapping, telling her it was a game. She had practiced her tearful TV appearances. She had even convinced some of her other children that Shannon might be dead, just to make her own grief seem more authentic. The motive was pure greed. Karen Matthews, a mother of 7 living on benefits, saw the reward money as her ticket to a better life. She was also trying to win back the affections of Craig Meehan, who had been pulling away from their relationship. She thought becoming the center of a national tragedy would make her more appealing to him. The public reaction was savage. Karen Matthews became known as Britain's worst mother, constantly compared to Kate McCann, who had genuinely lost her daughter. The community that had rallied around her felt completely betrayed. People who had given up their time, their money, their emotional energy to search for Shannon realized they'd been manipulated by the one person who knew exactly where she was. Both Karen and Michael Donovan were sentenced to 8 years in prison for kidnapping, false imprisonment, and perverting the course of justice. Karen served 4 years before being released on license. Shannon was placed in protective custody and given a new identity to start her life over. The Shannon Matthews case became a symbol of how public sympathy can be weaponized by people willing to exploit it. It raised uncomfortable questions about class, poverty, and the way society responds to missing children from different backgrounds. Most importantly, it showed how far some people will go to manipulate genuine human compassion for their own gain. Karen Matthews got her 15 minutes of fame, but not the way she'd planned. Instead of being remembered as a devoted mother who never gave up hope, she's remembered as the woman who terrorized her own child for money. The community that once supported her now sees her as the ultimate betrayal of everything decent about human nature. October 15th, 2009. A silver balloon is drifting across Colorado at 7,000 feet, and inside it, according to frantic reports, is a 6-year-old boy named Falcon Heene. The entire world is watching what looks like a child's death sentence playing out live on television, but here's the thing. Absolutely nothing about that day was real. Richard Heene wasn't your average dad. He was a storm chaser obsessed with fame who'd already appeared on Wife Swap twice. By 2009, he was desperate to get back on TV, pitching wild reality show ideas to anyone who'd listen. That's when he hatched a plan involving the experimental balloon he'd been building in his backyard. The morning of October 15th, Richard called 911 in a panic. His son Falcon had supposedly climbed into the balloon, which then broke free and was now floating away with the boy trapped inside. Within minutes, the National Guard mobilized. News helicopters scrambled. The FAA cleared the airspace. This was a full-scale emergency response costing thousands of dollars per minute. For 90 agonizing minutes, millions watched the silver saucer drift 60 miles across Colorado. Social media exploded with prayers for little Falcon. News anchors provided breathless commentary. The whole world held its breath. Then the balloon landed in an empty field. Rescue workers rushed to open it, expecting to find either a terrified child or something much worse. Instead, they found nothing. The balloon was completely empty. Now the search shifted to recovery mode. If Falcon had fallen from 7,000 feet, he was almost certainly dead. Search teams spread out along the entire flight path, looking for a small body that might have dropped from the sky. But while the world feared the worst, Falcon was hiding in a cardboard box in his family's attic. He'd been there the whole time. When Falcon finally emerged hours later, there was initial relief. The boy was alive, but that relief quickly turned to suspicion. Why had he been hiding? Why hadn't he come out during all the commotion? The real bombshell came that evening during a live CNN interview. Wolf Blitzer asked Falcon why he hadn't responded when people were calling his name. The 6-year-old looked confused, glanced at his parents, and said 4 words that changed everything. "You guys said we did this for the show." The silence was deafening. In that moment, millions of viewers realized they'd been completely played. The investigation revealed the full scope of the deception. Mayumi confessed that she and Richard had planned the hoax for weeks, even rehearsing what to say. The whole thing was designed to generate enough media attention to land them a reality show deal. Richard got 90 days in jail and was ordered to pay $36,000 in restitution. Mayumi got 20 days of weekend jail time. But the real punishment was the public's fury. The family that desperately wanted fame got it, as the people who had fooled America and wasted millions of dollars in the process. The Heenes eventually fled to Florida to escape the media attention, but the damage was done. Balloon Boy became shorthand for media hoaxes and the dark side of reality TV culture. Looking back, the Balloon Boy hoax feels like a preview of our current viral culture, a perfect storm of outrageous content, emotional manipulation, and the lengths people will go to for 15 minutes of fame. The silver balloon that drifted across Colorado that day carried the desperate ambitions of a family willing to sacrifice everything for attention. And when it finally came down to earth, it brought everyone else crashing down with it. These families weaponized our compassion, but awareness is our best defense against manipulation. What changed for you? Comment. Which warning signs you'll never ignore again? Will you verify before donating? Question medical claims? Trust that uncomfortable feeling in your gut? One aware person can save countless others from being fooled. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to keep building a world that's harder to deceive.